So in this video, we're going to cover how you can pull a 90-degree bend into your conduit. Now, we explained earlier why it's important that the angle is correct. This is not always easy to do. A good example of the correct kind of angle we're looking for is if you took a bit of metal conduit and you pulled it over a bending machine. Now, this would give you the right kind of size you're looking for. If it's too tight, it's going to damage your cable as you try to pull it through. Again, you could exceed the maximum bending radius as well allowed for cable. Now, the example here is quite a good example. It's quite a nice slow 90, the one on the board. But one I did earlier, and it's quite difficult to do with smaller lengths, was not pulled as well. There's a few reasons why this is actually easier with metal conduit. When we bend it, there's a way of marking out exactly where we want the bend to start. We know exactly how wide the bend's going to be. And when we pull a 90 over a bending machine, we know that everything's going to be okay. When we do the same with PVC conduit, there's a little bit of kind of guesstimating going on. Also, we can't predict exactly where that 90 is going to lie. The outside of PVC conduit is going to stretch, the inside is going to be compressed, and it's going to kind of change where we expect that marking to be. A good way of getting around this is if you have a little bit extra on both sides, and then after you've pulled your 90, you offer it up to where you want to put the work, and then you can cut either side so it fits in nicely. Now, different tools we're going to use. I'm going to mark it out using a tape and a pen. You would mark it out to the dimensions given to you by your lecturer or by the booklet. We're then going to use a bending spring. And we're also going to use a cloth. I'll explain the cloth later on. So, first when it comes to marking out, get the sizes you're given, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be halfway down the conduit. You just find your starting point, and then you find where you need that 90, and as I said, I'd make sure I've got extra at either end, and I would afford that. So if I've got to put a point, say 300, I would maybe give myself, well, if it was in college, and you guys are first time trying it, I might even say 350, and I would make sure I've got, again, I need 300 after the bend. I would maybe give you another 350 so you get tons of wiggle room in case that 90 starts to swim and it's not exactly where you want. The bit of conduit I have is 800mm. I'm going to try and bend the 90 at halfway point at 400. So as I said, that would not be for a length I need exactly 800. It would maybe be useful for a length I need, say, 700 or something, and that would be good enough. 90 doesn't always have to be in the middle. As I said, just in this example, and likely the work you'll be given, it will be pulled in the middle. So I take my tape measure to the end. I'll go to my 400. I'm going to use a permanent marker. You guys might be given a pencil. And I put my mark on my conduit. Now, next, just to introduce the bending spring. That's going to go inside our conduit. We want the centre of the spring to be in the middle of that mark. There we go. There is a bit of play. It doesn't have to be perfectly centred. Don't worry about it too much. But a good way of getting it to the centre of that spring is by taking it up and bending that cable. So once I'm happy, middle of the spring is roughly with my mark. Take that cable attached and bend it. Now with a small length, it might seem a bit insignificant because even if I put it end to end, it would still probably be okay. If I had a longer length and I was trying to put a bend in the centre, you could see why it would be useful if I put a kink in that wire at the correct length where I want it, so the spring will sit exactly where I need it. If I've got that kink, when I drop it in, I know then it's going to lie at the correct point inside the spring. Now, something else to touch on, when it comes to getting the spring out, don't grab the cable and just pull it out like that. If you do that, you might find it comes out, spins across the room, it could potentially hit someone. Instead, you're better putting your foot onto the cable and pulling it out onto the floor. and then it's not going to fly across the room, it's only going to hit the floor, and hopefully everyone will be okay. Now, if we were to bend the spring when it's too cold, it could be difficult. If we try to bend the conduit, if we try and bend the conduit when it's too warm, we might find we get ripples in the conduit. So there is a bit of a kind of Goldilocks point. In the workshop, it's not that warm. The conduit's a little bit cold, so I'm actually going to heat it up. That's the purpose of the cloth. There's other ways you could do it. You could use a heat gun. I've seen people do that. But a cloth, easy enough. Don't have to worry about batteries. Don't have to worry about plugging anything in. That'll do the job. So first off, I'm going to put my spring in. Then, use my cloth, heat it up. Now, two ways of bending it, and the one I would recommend is for you. Lost my spring, another good reason to kink it, so I know exactly where the right place is. Now, when it comes to bending it, ideally, put that line you've made for where you want your 90 right in the centre of your chest. I would grab both ends and I would pull it in that way. That's a way of getting a good bending radius on your 90. So that's ideal. Now with smaller lengths, that can be quite difficult to pull. It can take a little bit of strength. So alternatively, you can get it started over your leg. I've seen people get it started over their knee. I would be concerned that I pull it too tight then. It's going to be difficult to pull my cables. We spoke about how it's bad for your wiring as well. So instead, yep, I would put it on my knee if I need to use my leg. Hopefully, I'll not need to use it at all. I'm just going to heat it up again because it's got a little bit cold. Hopefully I can pull it in front of my chest. If it's too small, I might use my thigh. So in front of me, lying right in the middle of my chest, hold it like I'm driving a motorbike, and then pull in. And there we go, we've got it. Now, with your 90, bend it in, let it go, bend it in, and let it go. Now, it may seem like I bent it too much, but what you'll find is it starts to get cold, it's going to pull out. So if I take my spring out it now, again, put my foot on the cable, pull it out, and then my 90 is starting to come to what I'm looking for. When it comes to putting down saddles as well, it'll also pull it out and fix it. It's PVC conduit, you're not going to get it perfect. It's actually more difficult to work with than metal, I would argue. And just to show you, the reason why we give it extra at either end, my mark's actually swam a little bit. Yep, so that's how you work with PVC conduit. Be careful as you're doing it, be conscious of the swath, don't pull the spring out and hit anyone, and don't be too hard on yourself. It's hard to get right, even to people that have done it more than once.